Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm Dr. John Oldham, Chief of Staff at the Menninger Clinic, and welcome back to our series of podcasts that we call Menninger Mindscape. Today you're going to hear from me all by myself. I thought I would talk to you a little bit about an interest of mine that I've had for most of my career in personality and personality styles, traits, and problems. And that's a very big topic. We all know people who have lots of different kinds of personalities, and different types and styles make each of us unique, and it's part of what makes life interesting. In simple terms, there are generally two main building blocks of personality. One we call temperament, and that means that we're sort of hardwired to have certain personality styles and traits. And the other is usually called character. And that means the shaping and developing impact of environmental experiences, often during your early years when you're growing up, and certainly even later in life. So our molding of our personality comes from our inborn traits, then shaped by our experiences as we grow up. Sometimes I say, and we give talks here to families and to patient groups, that a good way to think about personality is to compare it to blood pressure. You got to have both. Got to have blood pressure to be alive. You got to have a personality. We need them both, but too much or too little of a necessary good thing can become a problem. So when we refer to personality disorders, those are indeed very real conditions. People have inherited risk to develop certain personality extremes or disorders, and that's when normally helpful and useful traits get too intense or too extreme, and then they start to backfire and become a problem. Years ago when I was in New York, and at that time at Cornell, working with a number of colleagues, a very fine research psychologist, Armin Loeringer, was leading a research group, and I was fortunate to join it, that developed something called the Personality Disorder Examination, PDE. And this is a semi-structured interview that you give to people and to patients to make a diagnosis of personality disorders. And Loeringer later revised this for international use, and it's still being used actually in countries around the world. And so this was a way in mental health centers to try to help identify if there were conditions that might qualify for disorders. And we know a whole lot more about that as time goes by, have learned a lot, and there are lots of ways we can help people with these problems. So the PDE was identified to examine these extremes. Well, some time ago, I modified that interview that was designed to be given in person and made a self-report version that's called the Personality Self-Portrait Questionnaire. And that was something that was developed with the help of a very talented colleague, a medical writer, Lois Morris, and she helped, and the two of us wrote descriptions of these personality styles and types. In essence, conceptually, what we did was look at the different disorders that were listed in the diagnostic manual for psychiatry, and conceptually kind of turned the volume down until the disorder became a useful and adaptive trait. So for example, there's a disorder in the book called obsessive-compulsive personality disorder. So that's when you really get so rigid and so worried about getting things exactly right that you can't really function very well. But you turn the volume down and it becomes something called conscientious, which can be very, very helpful trait that can be useful in all kinds of ways in your work and in your life. So this became an interesting exercise, and there's been a lot of interest through the years in this particular method of assessment and questionnaire. And it's deliberately designed so it doesn't focus on disorder. It just focuses on different styles and shows what's most prominent and paramount in your particular personality and what may not be so characteristic. There was an interesting experience I'll tell you a word about, and I think you will see that on the screen, but Before I do that, though, let me just tell you that this questionnaire is one that we've now made available, Lois Morris and I, with our colleague here, Dr. Alok Madan, and have made available on a website. And the website is actually www.npsp25.com. And that's a website that's got a 25 in it because it's the 25th year of the use of this particular questionnaire. But if you're interested, go to that website and you can take the questionnaire itself. I think on the screen you can see what the web page looks like once you get there. It's a very simple website. But you can take the test for free. There's no cost. It's entirely anonymous, so nobody will know who's replying and taking the test. And then you'll have the chart, and I think that will be on the screen now as well, showing a sample of a result. This one has a very strong trait that stands out from all of the others, and that's the conscientious trait. And this is somebody, I don't know whose this is, but this is somebody who is really focused on work and probably able to be very successful with a high level of that particular trait. Years ago, when we first developed this interview, I had the opportunity to be on the Today Show. That was when two of the co-hosts were Bryant Gumbel and Joe Garagiola. It was an interesting experience. Gumbel was not very interested in taking the test or having anything to do with the book. But Joe Garagiola went to the back room, took the test, brought it out, and scored it, and we put it on the screen. And I would add that Gumbel was very interested in analyzing Joe's personality chart, but it was a lot of fun. And you can see that on the screen, and it's very interesting. Now, Joe, many of you who are watching may not remember him. He was a very well-known sports figure and was a ball player for the St. Louis Cardinals, and then for a number of other teams. He was a catcher. But he was also a TV anchor on the Today Show, and somebody who was a very well-beloved kind of sports and baseball announcer as well. So what you see on his chart, and I'm showing it on the screen, and this was public on the Today Show, so there's nothing secret about it, but he's highest in dramatic. That's no surprise. He likes to be in front of the limelight. He's pretty high on vigilant over there to the left, and you've got to be pretty alert and watchful to be able to watch out for yourself as a professional ball player. Over on the right, he's pretty high on aggressive, and that's no surprise. But the one that surprised me was the one sort of in the middle that's called devoted. I wouldn't have expected that to be in a profile that includes vigilant and dramatic and aggressive. So I wondered how to understand that. And we talked about it on the air. Well, later I found out that his nickname on his ball team was Mr. Loyalty. And so you see that particular individual unique trait right there. So this is an example of how you can have fun and really look at yourself. Sometimes people have fun answering the test and pretending to be a spouse or a significant other, and then they have that person take the test and compare notes. Maybe that's a little risky sometimes, but if you do it with the right spirit, it's a lot of fun. So I wanted just to tell you a little bit about this, and what it underscores is that there is a spectrum that's very interesting of all types of personality styles, and much of it is very, very interesting. We are very different. It's interesting to know the different ways. There can be rough edges to your personality without your having a disorder, and there are ways you can smooth out those rough edges and think about, once you know what they are, ways you can get along with people and work on it, and we can change as time goes by. And make some real inroads into getting along with people once we understand our personality traits a little bit better. There are lots of other ways you can understand personality. This is certainly not the only one, but it's one I've been very involved with, and I thought I would mention to you. If you do get a chance to go to the website and just take the test for fun, we're hoping if we get enough numbers of people to do it that we can then analyze those data and see if there's an update or some revisions that might be helpful to even make it better. So take a look, have some fun, hope you find it interesting, and that's it for now, and we'll see you next time.